within 2-3 days, 2 of them got back to me.
Wow.
With a positive reply.
Amazing.
I was blown away that's like a thing, that just happened. And so I was talking with Manny's camp for a couple of days, and I was talking to Bob Horn. And at the end of that week, so that I sent those emails on a Saturday. Bob got back to me, I think, like on the next Tuesday. And in his email, he wrote that there are a couple of people ahead of you in line who, like, you know, reached out to me. But I'd still be happy to meet and like chat and hang out. I was like, great, cool. And so the following Saturday, I went by and met him, and we hung out. I ended up hanging out here with him for 7 hours between just chatting and watching him work. Another friend of his came by. We went to dinner, came back, hung out some more. Before you know it, it was like 10:30, 11 p.m. And I was like, oh man, I think I need to like go home. And he says, I'll never forget it. He says, okay, cool. So you want to like think about it and let me know? And I was like, what do you mean? I thought about it already. I'm here. Like if you want me here, like I'll be here. Like you got me. And he's like, cool. See you Monday. And that was that.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
I never found out what happened to the other 2 people, but
I guess you guys clicked, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
So that was that. And that was March of 2021.
So now it's been
a year and a half,
a year and
almost.
a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So what are you doing now for Bob? Like, what's your day-to-day looking like working with him?
So the day-to-day is, you know, the typical assistant duties are setting up sessions, whether he gets audio files from a new client or sometimes it's a Pro Tools session. So I would conform that Pro Tools session into his format, into his template, the way he likes to route things, the way he likes to work, and, you know, get the Pro Tools screen exactly the way he likes to see it, to where he can sit down, hit play, and he's mixing, right? So that's one thing that I do. And then at the end of it all, on the other side of it, is bouncing stems. Now, interesting thing is, Bob is very low maintenance. He's so chill. He's so chill and low maintenance. He is very easy to work for, you know? So I do end up having a lot of free time for myself, which is amazing. And he's all about that. Meaning, like, if there's nothing for me to do for him in a particular day, a particular morning, I get the room. Like, I get to do whatever I want.
That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, sometimes like I have to remind him to like, hey, give me something to do. Like, any new sessions I need to set up? Any stems you want me to bounce? Like, he's that low maintenance and just chill about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's the last person who would be like, I need you to do this for me like today. You know what I mean? And I'm assuming there are probably people out there who are more like that.
Man, I got to take a lesson from Bob Horn.
Yeah.
Take it easy a little bit, you know? Don't stress so much.
And I mean, look, it depends on, I guess, the way business is and the way you run it. Like, I'm not saying that as any kind of judgment for people who are a little more strict and more, you know, for lack of a better word, like militant in the way they run their business. By all means, if that's the way your business is, then that's the way it is. He is just super chill. That's the best way I can put it. Which is amazing. It's so nice.
So you get to mix for your own clients out of his room when he's not working.
Correct.
Wow. So basically, your whole life revolves around his studio, including his work and your own work, and you're just kind of mixing from there and working for him, and that's basically the day-to-day these days.
Correct. Yes.
That sounds like a dream.
Yeah. Another funny thing that happened over time. So, you know, as I was working for him and like setting up sessions for him and doing all that. Of course, my skills for sure shot way up really quickly. Just learning things from him and working in this incredible room too, that I'm in right now. But also stylistically, kind of seeing what he does from a stylistic standpoint, like that influenced me a lot, and affected the way I mix now. And so we're talking kind of about, the concept of like co-mixing, or like, he does his thing, but then like asks me like, hey, what do you think? Like, and I sit in the chair and like see what I would do different. And as I'm sure you know, oftentimes it's not like, hey, Bob, I can do this better. Check this out. No, it's here's another approach to this. What do you think? Let's discuss this. Let's see what we both think. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I said,
he's invited you in to hear your opinion and collaborate with you, and
exactly, which is a huge compliment. A huge compliment. I'm so humbled like every time that happens, But kind of through that, another funny thing happened. There was a time that he couldn't quite find a mastering engineer for himself that he could rely on regularly to have a decent price, because not all the clients can afford, the higher end mastering engineers, and have a pretty open schedule, or not open schedule, but, at least like be able to turn things around fairly quickly. And I was seeing him struggle with that, and trying this person and trying that person. And it's like, it's not quite it. That's not quite it. And one day I just kind of asked him, and he was like embarking on a new, like really big project that's gonna, and basically a new artist that will continue going. Like there's gonna be more and more songs, not just a few songs, or not even just an album. So I asked him, so Bob, what's stopping you from mastering your own mixes? Because of course many people do that. Personally, I don't like doing that. And I kind of knew what his answer was going to be, very similar to mine, and that is that I just like getting another person's perspective on this. And there are people who master several songs every day, and even though we use similar tools, it's not the same job.
Right.
The mixing and mastering is not the same job. It's a very different mind frame, right?
Yeah, it's the trees and the forest. Right?
There you go.
Like if you're mixing, you're focusing on how the vocal juts out versus the guitar or the drums or whatever. And when you're mastering, you just want to make sure the energy feels right. You know, like is there enough low end? Is there too much low end?
Right.
You're not looking at the individual instruments.
Exactly. So his thinking which I share is, I need someone else. I need someone else's ears to check this out, right? And someone who is a mastering engineer and does that like all the time and is in that space. So I kind of, in a very non-assertive way, I was like, okay, hear me out here. What if you finish a mix and pass it on to me? I start a mastering chain. I start, basically I start mastering the track. But before we even send it to the client, it's here in your room. You sit down, give it a listen. At that point, you're out of your mixing brain. That's like the next day, maybe 2-3 days later. Your state of mind is not as the mixer of this song anymore. You're able to step out for a second and then come back and listen to it as a master. And essentially, we're co-mastering in a way. Like you give me your final thoughts on it and do whatever changes you want. It's all in-house. It's all right here. And he really liked that idea. And so we kind of started experimenting with that. And it's been sort of working. And I don't particularly have the ambition to be a mastering engineer. Like I do like mixing, and that's what I want to do, not mastering. But it's still kind of cool. And that too kind of taught me a lot. Getting to master Bob Horn's mixes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Getting like
Yeah.
deep in there
Wow.
keeps teaching me about mixing.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. That's crazy. First of all, that's just a crazy story.
Yeah.
It's amazing you were able to get to that level.
Right.
What was I guess what have you learned? What are those lessons that you've learned about mixing by pseudo mastering or co-mastering Bob Horn's mixes? Like, what have you discovered?
Interesting question. In many cases, I've discovered what not to mess with, right? What not to touch, which is kind of funny because like the reason I'm here working for Bob to begin with is that I'm a big fan of his work. So like, why would I get into the mastering chair and start messing things up? Like, I think his mixes are incredible. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was kind of a big thing. I think another thing is getting another view on how his mixes change over time and how he chooses to approach this song compared to that song, right? And it's and seeing that it's not all the same. It's not all the same approach. And this, the mixes are not going to sound the same. Sometimes it feels like a completely different mixing engineer did it, right? But it's still him. So having this kind of way of almost like, I think of it as like logging it in my brain. Because if I'm just sitting here and watching him mix, that's not keeping a log in my brain. If I get in the chair and end up mastering that mix, that's logged in my brain, right? So I know what a mix for this song from 3 months ago sounded like very intimately, right? I know that very intimately. And I know what this other song from a week ago sounded like. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. It's like completely different, but both good, both really good. And that goes back to the point of like how subjective mixing is, right?
People are saying, especially now, like music sounds so, there's no like right or wrong sound anymore because some like top 40 sounds so different every song from the next. Like, you know, some stuff sounds totally distorted and some stuff sounds so pristine. And, you know, like they're sitting next to each other in the same room. There's no right thing. It's just aesthetic.
Right. And you brought up that you were talking to Billie Eilish's mastering engineer, right? And
John Greenham.
John, I remember when I was first like, you know, a few years ago, I was like, all right, let's give this Billie Eilish girl a listen. Let's give it a chance. And I gave it a listen. And it's like, wow, this is really dark. That record, I can't remember which it was. Maybe it was the first one, was mixed and I guess, you know, then mastered way darker than I would have expected. And that too, in a very similar way, was very eye-opening. I was like, wow, so like this is like super pop right now, super popular right now. Everyone loves Billie Eilish, yet it's not following that like very bright, present kind of sound that everyone else is going for.
It sounds totally opposite from like the Dua Lipa record, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it works. And it's funny, like John says that, or he you know, his explanation is that like everything is so dark that it's just basically the vocal is the treble and everything else is just dark, and that's how you're able to kind of make it work, which is like, what? Yeah. It's like flipped on its head.
Right.
But it's so, like, what I love about John is that like his masters just retain the emotion so well. Mm-hmm. I just feel like that record really spoke to me in a way that a lot of records that recently, you know, a lot of recent pop records did not, you know?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like the emotion comes through.
Right. And that's what I'm learning, going back to your original question. That's a lot of what I'm learning about mixing from mastering for Bob.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's amazing. What else have you learned from him? You know, just big lessons, like maybe it's like lifestyle stuff, or maybe it's, you know, maybe it's how chill he is. Like what other lessons have you learned from just being around Bob?
Lifestyle, I would say prioritizing health, you know, that's a big one. And it's something that I was, you know, learning over the years, but being here with him, also meeting other people around him, people who have been in the industry longer than I have, right? Like he introduced me to many people.